The man tasked with preventing terrorist attacks on Americans, whether at airports or in malls or elsewhere, is the president's chief counterterrorism advisor, John Brennan. At the White House earlier today, I talked with him about that, about al-Qaeda post-Bin Laden, and about the face of terrorism now. John Brennan, thank you very much for talking with us.
Thank you for inviting me here.
I want to start by asking you about a report we're airing on the NewsHour about the heightened security in this country post 9/11 in public places that may be putting American civil liberties at risk. What is your sense of whether this country has struck the right balance between more security and civil liberties?
Well, I think the President has made very clear that one of the real tenets of his policy is that we respect, recognize the civil liberties of every American person. And so what he has made very clear to me, as well as to others within the CT community, the counterterrorism community, is that we need to do our jobs the best that we can, but we also have to make sure that we recognize the limits of the law and also that American citizens and persons have these rights and liberties that we need to respect. So this has been a balancing act over the past decade. I think we've struck the right balance.
Are there instances, specific examples of where this additional security here in this country has either prevented or in some way led to, prevented an attack or led to the arrest or capture of somebody who was planning to do something?
Well, we had a recent example of an individual in Texas who was planning to carry out an attack against Fort Hood personnel who was disgruntled within the military. Nasser Abdu was his name, and it was because of the vigilance of a store clerk who was concerned about what that individual was attempting to purchase, who brought it to the attention of authorities, that then resulted in the authorities investigating and finding that this individual had put together the ingredients for improvised explosive devices. So rather than, security, it's vigilance is what we want, and that's why Secretary Napolitano from the Department of Homeland Security has made such a point about the See Something, Say Something campaign. It doesn't mean that you spy on your neighbors. It just means that we recognize that al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups are trying to carry out attacks in the homeland here. And so that it's the intention that, we have American citizens helping to protect this nation by bringing to the authorities any types of events, developments, incidents that they think, indicates that there might be some terrorist activities at play here.
Let me ask you the basic question. Is the United States safer today than it was on September the 11th, 2001?
No, I think without a doubt. This country now has become a much more difficult operational environment for al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups. The measures that have been put in place, the better integration of intelligence and law enforcement and homeland security capabilities over the last decade, the proactive efforts that we've made overseas to put the terrorists back on their heels. We've taken off the battlefield many senior al-Qaeda and other operational commanders. So both from the threat side as well as from the vulnerability side, the advances that we've made over the past decade have been just very impressive across the board. We also have worked very closely with our international partners. This is not just something the United States alone can address. So we have developed and enhanced our relationships with many different partner services overseas, building their capacity so they can do what they need to do to prevent those terrorists from coming here to the homeland.
Last week on the NewsHour, we interviewed the two former chairs of the 9/11 Commission, Tom Kean and Lee Hamilton, and they agreed that the United States is undoubtedly safer than it was on 9/11, but they also said that they think it's inevitable that there will be another successful terrorist attack, close to the scale, if not on the scale.
I don't say that another attack is inevitable. I like to think that every day we're going to try to uncover any type of terrorist activity is out there and take the steps to thwart any type of planning that might result in an attempted attack. But inevitability is not something that I ascribe to.
Well, one of the things they cited was the aviation screening system in this country. I mean, for example, they said that our detection, whatever we have in this country right now in the way of detection devices, is not yet at the capability of what the terrorists can do in terms of hiding a bomb.
Well, clearly the terrorists have been very innovative and inventive as far as improvised explosive devices, miniaturizing them, concealing them in different types of items. We try to stay ahead of that. We have our own research and development efforts on the technology front to be able to better detect, to thwart, to disrupt these types of efforts. So this is going to be a very dynamic environment, both the terrorists trying to adapt to us, and we're trying to stay ahead of them. And I think we have done a pretty good job in terms of the technology that we've brought to bear, the behavioral specialists that we've been able to bring to bear so we can detect people's behavior that is indicative that they might be up to something. So it's a combination of things. There's not a silver bullet out there that's going to make us safe. What we're trying to do is to have technology, to have people, to have redundant security measures that allow us or to optimize our chances of stopping an attack.
But they express particular concern about this screening system that they say is just not up to the level that it needs to be to detect what the terrorists are capable of doing.
I think we always have to strive to be better. And if that's what they're saying, then yes, I agree with them. What we need to do is to continue to advance our knowledge of IED technologies and creative types of applications that the terrorists are looking at right now. We are trying to make sure that it's intelligence-based. So as we get information about the types of mechanisms that the terrorists might be trying to use, we are adapting our procedures accordingly.
They also cite the growing problem of the lone wolf and self-radicalization in this country. Is that as great a worry now as is that of organized terrorism?
I think, and the President has said, the lone actor, the individual that is out there that might decide to carry out an attack either with an IED or with a weapon or a gun, this is a concern of ours. And it's sometimes more difficult to detect because an individual can do this on their own in their house and plot and plan and scheme and acquire materials and then just one day decide to get up and carry out an attack. We had an instance yesterday in Carson City, Nevada, where someone just decided to open up with an automatic weapon and unfortunately killed several individuals. It looks as though the individual was mentally unstable, but this is the type of thing that's difficult to guard against. And that's why the See Something, Say Something campaign, the effort to say, this person is acting differently or it looks as though that they're up to no good, this will give the authorities the opportunity to check something out.
Al-Qaeda, is there reason to believe that they are planning, a credible reason to believe they're planning an anniversary attack of some sort? And I ask because of this FBI bulletin that went out last weekend about the threat of small airplanes.
Yeah. Well, we know from the material that was recovered from the bin Laden compound that bin Laden was looking at the 10th anniversary of 9/11 as an opportunity to strike yet again at the U.S. homeland. Our intelligence agencies and law enforcement agencies have been very, very diligent in looking at all the different potential actors out there. We feel that we're on top of it right now. We know that Al-Qaeda wants to try to hit us here in the homeland again. They have been thwarted numerous times. But it's not just Al-Qaeda. There are other groups that have taken up the mantle of Al-Qaeda. So we are on our vigilance, and we have made a number of preparations in anticipation of the 9/11 anniversary, but it's not going to stop on 9/11 anniversary. We're going to maintain this vigilance and continue to do everything possible to protect the American people.
Is there clear evidence now that the death of Osama bin Laden clearly set Al-Qaeda back?
I think bin Laden's death, as well as the death of other senior operational commanders, Ilyas Kashmiri, who was responsible for putting together the plans to attack Europe and the United States, Atiyah Abdurrahman, there's the arrest that the Pakistanis carried out recently of Yunus al-Martani. These are individuals that were determined to carry out an attack against Western interests, including the homeland here. Taking them off of the battlefield, capture their deaths, has really set Al-Qaeda core, the senior leadership of Al-Qaeda in Pakistan, back significantly.
How do you characterize right now the strength of Al-Qaeda? We heard Secretary Panetta say this summer that the U.S. was within reach of strategically defeating Al-Qaeda. Is that realistic, and what would that look like?
Well, you have Al-Qaeda core, which is in the senior leadership, which is in the FATA area of Pakistan, which really has taken on the chin significantly as a result of our and Pakistani efforts. That has been degraded significantly over the past couple of years. But you have other Al-Qaeda elements, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, which is mainly in Yemen right now. You have Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, which is in the Sahel area of Africa. Al-Qaeda in Iraq. And so these franchises are active. They're carrying out attacks against locals, the Yemenis, the Iraqis, and others. And also there are elements that are trying to carry out attacks against us, American interests in those countries, as well as to try to do things in the homeland here. So those franchises are active, and we have Al-Qaeda core on the ropes, but that doesn't mean that these other elements are not able and determined to carry out an attack. And yes, we are concerned about what they might try to do.
It doesn't sound like that's within reach, the strategic defeat.
The phenomenon of terrorism that Al-Qaeda manifests and represents, I think, is going to be many-year effort. So we cannot relent. We cannot, even with the death of bin Laden, and if we get Zawahiri and others, that is not reason for us to relax. There is a core of these extremists that have this distorted concept of Islam and are determined to carry out attacks in the name of Islam. They're murderers, and we need to do everything possible to eliminate the threat that they pose to us, but also work with the countries overseas to make sure that they build the institutions, as well as provide for their people, the opportunities that will make the terrorist ideology blatantly bankrupt.
John Brennan, Assistant to the President, thank you very much for talking with us.
Thank you, Judy.